Welcome to the Miata story. It all began when I bought a 1997 Mazda Miata that had been completely taken apart by the previous owner. He sent it right out of the side of the block, so I had no engine, and I got it, and I planned on building it. So I started with a 93 Ford Escort engine as a platform to build upon. It was perfectly fine, but I went ahead and ordered some Wiseco forged pistons and Manley forged rods. Took it to the machine shop, got the block bored out for the bigger pistons, got the heads rebuilt, and when I got them back, it looked beautiful. Brand new valves. I went ahead and went with ARP main studs. And I couldn't find a local machine shop to line bore, so I just went ahead and plastic gauged it, and everything looked fine. The rings are gapped for a pretty healthy turbo build. I plan on making, 400 horsepower is my reasonable goal with this. Might be a little high, but I think we can make it. So I have a complete short block, and I started working on the heads. Got the cams in and everything ready to rock and roll. Also went with ARP head studs and an MLS gasket, so hopefully that'll keep the heads down and hold as much boost as I want to throw at it. I did go with a new non-vvt Melling's well pump with a boundary billet pump gear just to not have to worry about that. I went the easy route and with a no weld bung for oil drain for the turbo. It's really easy to drill a hole and put it in and screw it together. I put a Walbro 450 Hellcat pump in it, and when I went to pump the pump back in, I realized that my tank was completely ruined and full of rust and I couldn't even clean it. So I went ahead and dropped the subframe and put in a brand new tank. The car came with a really junky aftermarket wheel, so fortunately a Subaru Momo wheel is a direct fit. That's the 4th gen Legacy Momo wheel, my favorite wheel, and it is perfect. I also finally got in my Arashi 25G turbo for this build. Should be enough to handle and make as much power as I want. I did do a coil pack conversion on this. I just cut the existing harnesses and just put in a connector, just a 4-plug connector. I have 12 volt ground and then trigger for 1 and 4 paired and 2 and 3 paired. It is wasted spark, but that was just the easy way to get this to work with Toyota coil packs originally. Later on I did switch to Nissan coil packs after melting one of these. I'm just about ready to put the engine in and get it going. I went ahead and ordered an ATI damper, but right here I found out the terrible news that the Ford Escort snout on the crankshaft is different than the Miata. I verified this crankshaft was forged. It should have had the same snout as a Miata, but as you can see here, it's smaller. I also later realized that the oil pump seal is too big, and it would have shot all the oil out right at the front of the engine on the first startup and blown up instantly. So it's kind of a good thing, I guess, that didn't fit. I didn't realize at the time, but luckily I did have a spare crankshaft from the 97 Miata that came out of the car originally. I didn't really know the condition of it, so I just went ahead and blasted it with some super high grit sandpaper and just tried to clean it as well as I could and tried to get it ready. And I did go ahead and plastic gauge it. Everything looked fine, so I just said a prayer and let it go. And now my ATI damper finally fits, so I can start putting it back together. I did with a Napp Motorsports front inlet with the 6AN fitting, so I could tee off of that and use that for my turbo, as well as go to the throttle body and oil cooler just to retain that for a little peace of mind. I also went with a low profile water inlet there just to make more clearance for the turbo. The factory one did kind of rub the bottom of the housing, so that was just an easy way to get around that. And here it was going in for the very first time. And hopefully I was going to have a running Miata right here. But as I said, the car was taken apart completely, and it took me a little while to figure out how everything went back together. Everything was taken apart, even the fuse box had been taken apart, so I had to figure out where wires went and what was missing. And I finally figured it out and did get fuel to the rails, which here I found out that I had some massive leaks. So I just went ahead and replaced the O-rings, and that took care of that. up my fuel pressure regulator to 50 psi just as a good starting point. And then now I thought it's time to run. And then I spent the next week trying to get a crank trigger that would trigger fuel and spark. It took me a very long time to figure out the issue. It ended up being one of the connectors on the harness was not connected. I was just getting really frustrated at this time. It seemed like everything I did was not working. I fried the coil pack, and here I switched to Nissan coil packs, and then I realized the Speedy was sending spark and fuel signal. The problem was on my end on the harness, so I finally found that, and then it started for the first time.
It runs, baby!
So from here I slapped on exhaust.
That was exciting.
Didn't have a downpipe yet or anything to build one at the time, so I just went with a V-band elbow to a 4-inch dome just to get it going. And then I got in a 6-speed, so now it's 6-speed time just so it'll handle the power that I want to throw at it. I decided the easiest way to do this would just be to pull the engine and trans together as a unit rather than just dropping the trans. So right after everything went in, it came right back out. Out with the old and in with the new 6-speed. And at that time I did finally get an elbow. I went with an S13 C25 elbow to start my downpipe. And then now the car wouldn't start again. So I kept running through things saying, what did I change when I pulled it out? I literally just had it running. The problem ended up being the starter that went with the 6-speed. There's a slightly different bolt pattern on the 6-speed starter, so I just used one that came with it. And apparently that starter was bad, and it took me a whole day to realize that's why it wouldn't start anymore, because the starter, it was working. I did get the car to start a few times, but it was being sporadic and it failed a bunch of starter tests, and I just went ahead and went back with the 5-speed starter. It does fit, there's just one bolt that can't go in. Along with that, I went ahead and replaced the clutch master cylinder. I had already replaced the slave when I first began this project because it just fell apart. So I went ahead and did that and bled it. And here I put the 5-speed starter back on. And then it finally just fired right up. So then I still couldn't disengage the clutch, so I went ahead and just made a hard line to replace the one piece of soft line in the tubing that goes from the master to the slave. Just hoping to get rid of any potential issues there, and then I bled it again. And then the same issue was still there. The clutch was still not disengaged, I could not put it into gear. I was getting pretty frustrated. I thought, did I put the clutch in backwards? What possibly could this issue be? The master's new, the slave's new. I know the fluid's new, I just bled it for an hour.
Moment of truth. Will the car go into gear? Yes, it does.
The issue ended up being the clutch pedal is not adjusted properly. And now the car runs. Time for the very first drive. It runs pretty rough. The tune is very far off, but this is an awesome start. I did go ahead and data log these first drives just so I can get a proper tune. Thanks for watching.